Everybody, my name is Brandon Pineda. I am a Urban Alliance intern at Warner Film Fest. We're here today with the lovely Alexia, who is part of Chicago's Youth Alliance for Climate Change. And she will help us explain what exactly is going on in major cities like Chicago and how it affects the environmental climate. Lovely to have you, Alexa. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
So, Alexia, I know most people would probably think environmental protection in Chicago because it's mostly a major city. So, how do you feel sometimes knowing outside there are more buildings than there are trees?
I think sometimes it's hard to build a connection to the environment, and sometimes it's kind of like a little upsetting to think that there are like more buildings than trees in the city, especially because a lot of the buildings that we have they're tall buildings. They host like a lot of people. So realistically, for like I guess balance of everything, there should be more trees than what we have. But I kind of think of it as like I don't know. It's like trying to it gives us another chance to build a better connection with the environment and learn to appreciate what we have more.
Understandable. And especially that may be harder for youth. Like for us, for example, we enjoy being out in nature. We enjoy the wilderness, and most of the time we can't even get a decent park.
Yeah, especially for little kids, I think it's like kind of sad, I guess, like if you grew up and you don't like exactly know what like a national park is, or you've never been out into the woods, like you think this is all that is around us. You don't really think about nature. And I think that's what causes like a lack of connection between people and nature, is that they grew up in a place where they didn't really see any. So it's like, you know.
That is very much true. And we actually went and dug up some of your other experiences with organizations. Like, could you maybe explain to us a few of them and what do you guys do exactly?
Yeah, so I work with four organizations mainly. I'm the co-director of Chicago Youth Alliance for Climate Action. I call it SIACA for short. I am one of the high school leads for Chicago for the Sunrise Movement. I work with Illinois Youth Climate Movement. I'm one of the actions lead there, so like doing, I guess, like running strikes and stuff like that. And then lastly, with SIACA, we partner with Ready for 100, and we do that type of stuff. So I guess I can go in and explain it a little bit, just so people know, like whatever you're interested in the climate movement, there's definitely a space for you. The Sunrise Movement is geared towards winning a Green New Deal, which is a resolution, not a piece of legislation as of now. But basically, it's just to get clean energy, good jobs for all people, and a bunch of like other things. But those are like my favorite points. Um, that is more like actions, like, well, that's pretty based anywhere, anything that you're interested in, whether it be, you can be an artist and be in the Sunrise Movement, you can like hosting actions, you can like doing legislation or doing like research on your politicians, whatever you like, there's pretty much a space for you there. For Chicago Youth Alliance for Climate Action, we're more based in education. So we go, well, for the past year, we haven't really been able to do much, but we do educational meetings, going into schools on the South and West Side, talking to people about environmental racism and letting them know how this is happening, why this is happening, and how you can help to fight against that. Illinois Youth Climate Movement is like our kind of like US strike. So every year when they're like those 4 days, when we have those huge strikes, Illinois Youth Climate Movement is one of the people pushing that and coming out with demands for people. And lastly, Ready for 100 is, I think there's pretty much one in every major city. Basically a group of people who are fighting at the like citywide level to get climate legislation passed and help win a clean, bright future, I guess. Yeah.
How exactly did you get involved with all this work? Like, what was the history behind this?
So basically my freshman year, I had like my world studies class. I took world studies and then a US history course. And through that, I just saw like a lot of, I guess, abandonment. Like no one really cared about the environment, and over throughout history we've seen so many signs of it. And so there are a lot of organizers who went to my school, and so from that I could just say, um, there wasn't an excuse around me not to get involved. And I saw, like, I was learning constantly about the problems, especially in Chicago with like environmental racism and stuff like that. And so I was like, this is a problem that's affecting me. It's affecting my people. There's literally no excuse not to go outside and help everyone. So why not?
Exactly. And on the other subject, how do you feel sometimes knowing that mainly the poster people for helping climate change is predominantly white, cis, hetero males, or white people in general versus people of color?
It's very saddening, especially because like climate change majority affects it, like it affects people of color, like islands that are sinking, people of color there, countries that are being like taken advantage of, well, people in countries who are being taken advantage of, people of color once again. So it's like we are really missing out on the root of all of like our power, because all of the passion, all of the stories, all of everything is in the communities where people of color lie, and we're looking to other people to kind of tell our stories. So it's kind of upsetting.
It almost feels because it's for affecting everybody, but yeah, again, it sometimes feels like people of color are excluded in a sense. Is that correct?
Yeah. We're definitely like everyone's affected by climate change. This is not a issue of color or anything, but the people who are oftentimes affected most are people who live in like low income neighborhoods or neighborhoods that are majority like people of color. And can you give us maybe an example of how that affects us currently in, like, let's say, the city of Chicago? Yes, I think a really good example is there is, I think it's a steel plant, it's called General Iron. It used to be on, I think in Lincoln Park. And so basically this place is known to just be like, everyone complains about it because it produces a lot of like pollution. It's not good for the air. So basically what happened was people in Lincoln Park, which if you aren't from Chicago is a more affluent neighborhood closer to downtown, they complained, and the steel had like the plant had to move. And so now it's moving to a neighborhood on our southeast side, which is primarily Latinx and Black. And so it's like the permit hasn't yet been denied. And this has been going on for, I think, 2 years now. So that's a really good example of just people just like going like, hey, this isn't a white person area. We don't want this here. We're going to move it to some people of color area. And no one's really stopping it at this point.
And how is the administration, for example, handling it? Like for the city, how do you feel with the government we have in there?
So originally, there wasn't anyone stopping it, but because I think because of like the recent commotion that like activists has been causing, there's been I think it's like a temporary like halt. I don't know what you would call it specifically, but there's a pause in it getting its permit because of all of the complaints, and then it's like blatant environmental racism in front of everyone. It's pretty obvious that we shouldn't be giving them a permit anyways, but I think it's a good step in the right direction.
Interesting. Have you ever felt maybe backlash towards like family or friends saying that you're just wasting your time, or why would you want to focus on this as a job?
Definitely. When I first got into the environmental movement, and I feel like this is for a lot of people, there's a lot of like, when you learn so much, you kind of learn to place the blame on people and consumers. And there are a lot of consumers around the world. There are billions of consumers. So when you try to ask someone to be more reasonable or responsible with what they buy, everyone's like, you're not going to get all the billions of people in the world to listen to you or do what you want them to do. And so everyone's just like, it's useless. What you're doing is useless. But I think as you learn more and as you go up the ranks, you realize like who's actually responsible for most of the pollution and all that stuff. And it becomes like a lot more manageable. But yeah, definitely a lot of backlash from like pretty much everyone. I had to convince everyone in my family to support me, but it's been there.
It really is a struggle. I can relate actually with the family in general too, that they may be also the strongest motivation for us, but they also are also the weakest wing, especially when it comes to changing or progress.
Yeah, definitely.
So on probably on the more positive side, what can regular teens do? Like what can youth do in general? Anybody of any age to help climate change?
I think the youth have the most power. We're like the most passionate. From what I've seen, we're the most passionate people on the earth. I think we should just start using our power, really, educating each other because we are the next generation of voters. We're the next generation of pretty much everything that goes along of workers. So, like, yeah, workers, business owners, everything. So, if we learn now to start being more reasonable with what we're doing, so making sure if we want to create a business, our business is sustainable, making sure that we research what politicians we're voting for and what they stand behind, so that when they go into office, we can hold them responsible, especially in Black and Brown communities, because that whole culture of like listening to politicians, listening to their people is very like, at least in Chicago, it's already like happening in white communities. So learning how to vote for the right people in Black and Brown communities, learning how to take responsibility and saying like, oh, this is something that I'm comfortable with, and I like doing it, but it's not good for the earth, it's not good for other people. Let me learn how to do something else. So I think really taking responsibility and ownership and like doing the right thing. However you can help, joining local organizations to learn more, doing small projects at your school that are like sustainable. Everything helps as long as you're interested, whichever way you are. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think what everybody can take away from this is that it doesn't matter how old or how young you are, you have power to help change everything for the better, basically, in the
Yes.
future.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. And I think we can both agree that You Speak Of, the film that we are currently being interviewed for, is actually promoting that for us. It's actually breaking it down for everybody.
I think, yeah, it shows like a really good balance between like the youth and older people, because obviously the parents, lawyers, everyone are like, they're adults. They're like, you know, some of them are later in the later stages, some of them are the more younger stages, but like it shows the power between the youth and the adults and what everyone believes in and how together we can fight for something better.
Everybody give it a round of applause. Thank you to Ms. Alexia Henderson from Chicago Youth Alliance on explaining to us and breaking down her experience with climate action. Thank you so much, Alexia, for having the time for us today, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Hi, thank you for having me.